Welcome into episode 2 of the Jets Lab, a New York Jets podcast. And I'm your host, Joey Bonsanti. Sitting on the other side of the laptop is my good friend, Jared Toromio. JT, how are you doing, my good friend?
I'm doing well, Joey. How are you doing? I'm very excited to get into the topics we have today, and I know we have a few questions to get after too today.
Yeah, we got first couple mailbag questions, which is awesome. Starting to get some interaction on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, I had a little semi-viral tweet go out earlier in the
Oh,
week.
need to get
Uh,
that Twitter following up.
I know. Yeah, it was an Elmo tweet. It was the
Oh,
it was the picture from 06, 07. I don't know why. I mean, it's not really viral, but it got 300 likes, which is a lot for an average Joe like me. It was that picture
hey,
from Sesame Street with Chad Pennington, Ben Graham, Lavernius Coles, and Eric Mangini. I don't know why it got so many likes though.
anything with Sesame Street and Chad Pennington deserves a lot of likes.
It must have been a blast to pass for a lot of people on Jets Twitter. So, but hey, I appreciate the love by everyone. So, yeah, but I'm excited to get into this episode too. We got a lot on tap today. You want to hit us with some quick news, JT?
Yeah, let's get into the lab report right here. The first, we got Deshaun Watson doubles down on his trade. He met with the new Texans head coach today and basically said, "Hey, nice to meet you. I'm still leaving."
Yeah, and I mean for us Jets fans, that makes us, that's butterflies in your stomach right there. That's confirming that he wants out of there, and that at some point Nick Caserio is going to have to say, "See you later." And I really do think that he will get traded at some point, especially if there's a lot of backlash on there from Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I really think this relationship, there's no way that the Texans can mend defense. And really, I think they're wasting their time trying to mend the fence. Like, this guy clearly wants out. And I know Boomer said that on Boomer and Geo one day, but apparently, whatever the Texans did, and I think it goes far beyond the lying to him stuff. Like, they did something even worse, what he alluded to. And sounds like Deshaun might be in the right by wanting out and getting the hell away from these guys.
Yep, I think it's only a matter of time, and that kind of brings up another. It was kind of a crazy day today with Russell Wilson, and it was rumored that he doesn't necessarily want out, but would be open to a trade to a certain amount of teams. The Jets were rumored to be one of them, and then Adam Schefter came in and said, "No, they're not. It's these three teams or four teams." And I never really felt that first report was accurate, but I mean, of course, it got the blood pumping a little bit.
I know, yeah. It's a weird situation, I think, with Russ, because it's like he's found success there, but I guess now he's just kind of getting a little pissed off. Probably saw how Brady was treated at Tampa, and he was like, what the heck? Why am I not getting that kind of treatment from my coaching staff? And after the firing of Schottenheimer, Russ was really pissed about that. So I think we won't really see a trade with him coming for this season, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on during the season, how that relationship goes on.
Kind of crazy how someone like him getting paid a lot of money. He says he wants more protection, but it's almost tough when you're getting paid so many millions of dollars
Yeah,
to allocate the resources elsewhere.
definitely.
So yeah, those are just a couple quick hits on the quarterback end, and then just a couple other stupid points here, a couple stupid
Yeah.
mock drafts that we saw. Mel Kiper Jr. and Colin Coward came out with one on his show today. They both had us taking Kyle Pitts in the top 5. I believe it was Mel Kiper who had us trading back to 4 and taking Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. And then it was Coward saying, we're going to take a tight end at 2. And in our current state, how in the hell are we taking a tight end in the top 4?
Yeah, the big thing with me is with the Mel Kiper draft is you have the Jets trade back, take a tight end at 4. Meanwhile, Justin Fields is still on the board and he goes at 7 in that mock draft. The thing I'm wondering is if you're gonna have the Jets trade back, why don't you have them trade back with like San Francisco or someone and then take a tight end or then take a different position than quarterback? It just doesn't add up. And then with Colin Coward having us take a tight end at 2, that's just garbage in my opinion. And no tight end I don't think has ever been drafted that high. The only the highest a tight end has ever been drafted was 5, and that may have been too high.
Yeah, I could see maybe we trade back to if you're in the 12 to 16 range, maybe you're taking Kyle Pitts. You can maybe try to sell me on that point. But I mean, top 5 is just utterly ridiculous. So
Yeah. And you know
let's
what? If we do take him top 5, I really hope that guy better be the GOAT from day one.
he better be more than what Kittle is in this offense. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you say we put the lab report to bed and talk about our main discussion today?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm excited to get into this one.
Me too. And we spent a good amount of time on it, and we both have pretty good points on it, I believe. And it's going to be talking about the top 5 free agents that we think the New York Jets could sign. And now, when we say that, these are guys that we don't think we're going to sign all of them, but they're just options where we see, these are avenues that JD can go down if he feels, he wants to fill the roster out this way.
Definitely.
So do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll start here and we'll go back and forth. But Joe, you know where I'm starting, and that's in the trenches with the big boys. And my number one, or one of the guys I'd really like to see come here, is Corey Linsley. Linsley had an 89.9 PFF grade, and he allowed 1 sack this season. I think we can get him for about 10 to 12 mil, and for a 3-year contract. He's 29, turning 30 soon, or about a year older than Joe Thuney, who I know a lot of people want. But getting this guy at center, moving over McGovern to guard, and having him at guard could really help. I really think this guy can help solidify that interior O line.
Yeah, and the interesting part about this is that he wasn't rumored to be back with the team. This was only a couple days ago where people came out and said, "Well, Lindsey's going to hit the market," and like you said, he was graded out as the top center in the league by Pro Football Focus. So I mean, that would be quite the piece to add to the center of that line there, and add a really nice stable core in the middle. I mean, this transitions pretty well into my guy that I will start with, again, with you in the trenches. I think Joe Thuney is someone that the Jets can sign and immediately makes their line that much better. Throw him at left guard. I think 4 years, 60 million in that range, about a $15 million AAV will probably get it done. It's a lot for a guard, but I think you're going to get what you paid for. He's been a staple on that Patriots offensive line for the past 4 years. He got franchise tag last year. I mean, I think you insert him at left guard and he becomes, that makes your left side very scary with now Mekhi Becton and Joe Thuney.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we better be running the ball towards the left. And the other thing is with Joe Thuney, he was the one that got away last year from us. And I don't think the Patriots have the resources to franchise tag him again, or don't want to use him on him again.
Yeah, I would be surprised. But I'm really a lot of Jets fans, and it's been a big talking point of Jets Twitter that this is the guy that everyone wants. I think a runner-up here is Brandon Scherff. 3 years, 45 million is kind of what I had him at. Again, $15 million AAV. That's what you're kind of looking at for some of these guys. And it's going to be very important to get, in my opinion, and in your opinion, one of these guys.
Definitely. Now, moving on to the other side of the ball, we really need some edge help. And I'm telling you, if we got an edge, Quinnen will have a double-digit sack season. But the guy I think we should target is Bud Dupree. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably shaking your heads right now because this guy just tore his ACL like in week 10. But I think we could get Bud Dupree on a nice 2-year deal, around 17 million, and have him prove it. Last season, he had 9 sacks, was well on his way of having double-digit sacks, and the guy is just an animal out there.
I have loved Bud Dupree for years. I've had him on my radar. For some reason, I really do think he's going to get more money than that. I think that you mentioned the success of Quinnen Williams due to someone like Bud Dupree on the defensive side. Robert Saleh's 4-3 defense is it has to have an edge presence to be successful. And it's been something that we've been lacking for years. So, I mean, add a Bud Dupree. I personally don't think JD is going to take the route and pay Bud Dupree. I don't know how much money it's going to cost. I think that it could be a little bit more than you're saying. It could be what you're saying. Who knows? I mean, again, we don't really know until the guys actually hit the market.
Yeah. The only reason I said around that is because I could see JD being like, all right, you're not going to be playing for half of this season, most likely, but we'll give you that 2-year deal to make sure you can repeat that success because that whole defense was stacked with TJ Watt on the other side. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, all right, was this success because of him or is it because of the people he's with? So, but I could see it both ways. Maybe JD pays him a 3-year, 17 mil, maybe 3-year, 18 mil, just a little bit longer, trusting him and thinks that he could be the guy.
And I think another COVID would play the COVID market's going to play a factor in it as well. And it sucks for him because I think he would have gotten paid a lot more if he hadn't gotten injured. But that is the if. Let's go to my second guy here. I'm moving it on the offensive side of the ball again. I think it's pretty imperative to get a excuse me, a good free agent running back. I think it's someone like a Jamal Williams. That's a guy who I like. I think you get him at like around 3 years, $10 million. Or even like a Marlon Mack. He's my runner up. Other guys like Gus Edwards. I'm thinking that if you can pair a guy like Jamal Williams, who's also really good in pass protection, with someone like Ty Johnson and maybe a rookie running back, we know what kind of, I mean, if you watch the San Francisco 49ers offense last year, you have a bunch of guys running the ball. This is going to be definitely running back by committee. It could even be 3 guys running the football at all times. So,
yeah, and the one thing that we saw from the 49ers is they aren't afraid to invest in their running backs and spend either draft capital or some cap dollars on that position. So I think Jets fans can expect us to get an addition or 2 in running back.
definitely. And let's hit it off with the third guy, JT.
Yeah, my third guy right here is Corey Davis. And now Corey Davis had 984 yards with 65 receptions last season. He really should have had a 1,000-yard season, but he only played in 14 games. But he also graded out with an 86.9 PFF grade. I really think Corey Davis could be a great addition to this offense, and he's a great run blocker too. With him and Mims blocking, our run game could be supreme. But I think we could get Corey Davis for around 13 to 15 million and a 4-year deal, and he's really, I think, the real deal.
Yeah, I think that he would be a nice addition to the offense. I think he would fit well in the scheme. And again, this is going to carry over into my point with the wide receiver that I have us going after in free agency. And I think this is a guy who's been talked about a lot, Curtis Samuel. I think it's going to be somewhere around but I think you maybe like 540 to 45 range. We would have to see what the money ends up being. I think he is one of the better scheme, one of the better value guys you're going to get on this market. He's almost kind of like a Swiss Army knife. You're going to use him on the outside. You're going to use him in the slot. You're going to use him on jet sweeps. I mean, you can line up at running back. He has had a really good season last year. And we saw his name come up in that Panthers offense. They like to utilize him in many different ways. And I can't even imagine what he would be like in a Mike LaFleur offense.
And I really think he could have like that Brandon Ayuk role, just taking those jet sweeps and having great runs after passing the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I think either one of our, whether me and you both agree that we don't see JD going down the rabbit hole of A-Rob, Kenny Galladay, I had written down, but I just don't see him paying anywhere from 17 to 22 million a year for a wide receiver. It's not the kind of GM that he is. You mentioned last week, Joe Douglas is a value GM. He wants to get the most out of his pieces for the least amount of money. And we've seen that early on in his career.
Yeah, definitely. I think guys like Curtis Samuel, guys like Corey Davis, those are the kind of guys that we should be looking at, these second tier, if you even want to call them that, because these guys can be all pro in some offenses. But moving on.
How many times a day do you –
Oh, what were you saying?
One question before you move on. How many times a day do you think you see an Allen Robinson edit on Twitter?
Oh, honestly, it's probably like 3 or 4 times now. But like, I love A-Rob, great receiver. It's just that guy's gonna want 20 plus mil per year.
Break the hearts of some of our listeners, but it's the truth. It is really the truth when you have Joe Douglas, I think, at the helm.
Yeah.
All right, now I'll let you move on.
Next guy, we all know how important the tight end position is to this Shanahan/LaFleur system. And the tight end I would like to see brought in is Gerald Everett. Everett had 41 receptions and 417 yards last year for the Rams. I really think that this could be a value pick here for JD. bringing in a tight end like Everett to pair up with Herndon, have him being paid about 5 to 7 million for a 3-year deal. This puts him in the perfect spot in this offense where I think he could thrive.
Yeah, and you mentioned I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but Higbee and Everett in that Rams offense is scary. And every time one of them would get injured, you'd kind of see the other one get. It's kind of crazy to see. You almost wonder, well, what would Everett do in an offense by himself, or just paired with a tight end where he could just be the premier guy? Because I feel like Higbee's kind of taking that role there. So I would love Everett as an addition at tight end for this team.
Yeah, I think he could be.
Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No, just building off that, I really think he could be like you said, take on that premier role and really take the show.
And that transitions into my guy at tight end who I have here. I'm really high on Johnny Smith. I think that he would be an amazing addition to this offense. And I kind of value him and Everett almost as Jonnu a bit higher because I really like the way he plays. I have him probably going about $26 million. That's about $7 million a. I think it's really good value. I think that either that you can get in free, you can almost turn them into not Kittle-esque, but I mean, you never know. I think they could be a big vocal offense. I'd love to see how Chris Herndon would do with another tight end like Jenner on the other side of him. I just that would up his play. And I think the offense would be scary with someone like Jonnu Smith, Herndon, or Everett and Chris Herndon.
Yeah, I really think you're right there. And Jonnu is a favorite of mine too. I think if we can't get Everett on a cheaper deal, like if we have to spend money, I'd rather spend it at Jonnu. But either one of these guys can be really great for the tight end position.
And I put a little star next to this one because I do think that adding one of these guys at tight end is going to be huge. You saw the role Kittle in that offense in San Francisco. So I think it's very, very important to grab someone at tight end. And like you said, it be through free agency and maybe be through the draft, but I trust whichever route they're going to take. I would just prefer to get someone up and coming like a Johnny Smith or a guy like Everett. And that kind of puts us towards the last set of guys here. So who do you have as your number 5 guy?
Now, this last guy here, he might not be the most popular name, but it's Kendrick Bourne. Now, Bourne was with the 49ers. He had 49 receptions and 667 yards. And he could be actually just a really good, cheap option. Another like 5 to 7 million for like 3-year deal. But this is a guy you could bring in who knows the system and knows his place in it and knows how to work well with it. And LaFleur, I'm sure, has connections with him. And I'm sure Saleh does too. And this could be someone we bring in who already knows the system and can just add great depth to that wide receiving core. We saw last year how once Perryman, Mims, and Crowder were all out, we were down to receivers like the Smith brothers of Vincent and Jeff, not actual brothers, and Braxton Berrios, the return specialist. But guys like Kendrick Bourne could be a great depth option and really help beef up this core.
Key word there, depth. Me and you stress this a lot. When you're watching Jets games, you don't want to see guys plucked off the practice squad from a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I don't want to see guys where I'm scratching my head sitting there on the couch on Sunday saying, who the hell is on the field right now for the New York Jets? So I think Kendrick Bourne's a really good depth piece, and number 5 value, I think that's a really short 5, and not many people are talking about. So I really do like that piece by you. My number 5 is going to be a guy from the 49ers as well. I think that this could be a nice veteran piece. He's been linked to the Jets and Saleh this whole offseason. I'm going to say Richard Sherman. Get him at maybe a 2-year deal, $8 million. A nice veteran presence. I think he'll be, a good piece to out, be a good mentor for the young cornerback class that we're going to have. And, hopefully just set the tone in that locker room, because he is a good leader. Yes, he's vocal here and there. I've not been the huge Richard Sherman fan that many people are, but we know he's a loudmouth, but he's a very intelligent and smart, good guy for the locker room.
Yeah, I don't think we Jets fans ever thought we'd see Sherman in our jersey, but hey, it could happen. And you know what? At this point, it honestly should happen. This cornerback free agency class is not that great when we were looking through it. But Sherman's one of those guys who it's like, hey, you know what? He knows the system. He's actually been playing great ball the last 2 years. Why not sign him for a cheap deal? Let him coach up the youngins.
And like I was saying, he's 33 years old. He knows his role. You know, he's not going to be an every down guy, but he can play solid corner and just be a good locker room guy. And that's a good learn from, you know, and there's going to be a lot of guys like, you know, Bryce Hall-esque type guys that are going to be learning the position more and more. And I would love Richard Sherman to be there as that father figure, some would say.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, and again, I would love to go down a different rabbit hole here and say, let's talk about other guys. But I do want to mention this point, and that is I don't think many moves will be made via free agency. I think it's going to be more of the bigger moves are going to be via trades. In my eyes, I think one of the reasons that JD has acquired so many draft picks and so much draft capitals in the mid to later to try to acquire guys from teams that are in cap hell and need to get rid of guys. And I mean, one of those guys is that we've been talking about is Marshawn Lattimore, but there's other guys too that I feel like you could add depth for really cheap, and they're pretty good players.
Yeah, I definitely think JD's got that call. The phone line's always open, and I'm sure he's calling those teams that are in some tough spots with the cap and making sure, like, hey, we're open to trades if you need the low cap relief. But yeah, I also think I know we have 68 million in the cap available, but there's no reason for us to spend it all in one off season, especially when we're in the start of this rebuild practically. Like there's no reason to just blow it all here. We can always roll over cap, and it's smart to roll over cap.
Yeah, I'm a big cap rollover guy too. You want that extra money heading into next year. You want to spend money and improve, but you want to improve in places where it makes sense and for the right price. Again, keyword value. You want the right value. But yeah, don't be
Definitely.
surprised to see JD dish out some trades. And you know, that's the smart way of going about it. You don't just we saw what a bad GM does within Mike McCagnon. You drop huge money on Le'Veon Bell, a washed up running back. You're dropping huge money on linebackers. It's just not the way to go about things, especially when there's so many other holes on your team. Roster is far from winning a championship in 2021.
Yeah, and a quick add on here, you saying linebackers made me think of this, but dark horse to keep your eye on this offseason is linebacker Matt Milano from the Buffalo Bills. A lot of talk saying that he's going to hit free agency, but people are unsure. I guess if we could add on a sixth guy, that's someone to keep your eye on in free agency where he goes.
Yeah, that is a good point. I've seen a few links in there talking about maybe Milano of the Jets, but then again, I feel like every player that is even rumored to be available is linked to the Jets. So, and maybe that's just the nature of Jets world. But so, how about Jay? This? How about players on our team? Who are we trying to keep from our team? Who are the starters that we roster heading into 2021?
I think there's only one way to start this conversation off right, and that's with the best safety on our team, Marcus May. Now he's most likely going to be franchise tagged, I think, and I think that's a smart move for both parties right now. Just if we get him on the franchise tag, it would come out to about 11 million. And what JD will probably do is tag him and try to extend him.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that within the upper parts of the organization, they know how important Marcus May is to the defense and to the team as a leader. I could definitely see them tagging him and trying to get a long term deal worked out. Again, they tag him. It's about $11 million, like you said. I think the deal would probably hit somewhere around 12 or $13 million a year. And I think that you're already pretty close with the franchise tag, so we would see where the long term deal would take him. But with the type of leader he's been, the continuity, he's been pretty good with injuries, to be honest. Knock on wood, because I know a lot of the Florida guys out of college are prone. But I mean, he's been everything you've wanted. Doesn't open his mouth, plays hard, and he's just a leader on the defensive side.
Yeah, this guy, he really took the leadership role this year after Jamal Adams was traded, and he took it like a true leader. And he was a presence in the locker room, a presence for the secondary, and a presence for that defense when CJ Mosley opted out as well. This guy really stepped up, and he should be sticking around for hopefully many years.
Jamal could maybe learn a few things about leadership from Marcus May, I feel. So I'm
I'm sure
glad
he would.
I'm glad we ended up with May. I mean, he's just a better guy, a better, in my opinion, just a really solid player. He made some great plays this year. So let's stick on the defensive side. Who's the other guy we want?
And now this other guy, pretty much the only other starter I would think coming into free agency is Brian Poole. Now Brian Poole, he's just been rock solid corner for us. I know he had the injury, and that might be scaring a few people off. Like, oh, injuries are always wary for corners, but this guy has been rock solid, and he was just clearly our best cornerback. Although he might be a nickel corner, but hey, you need those guys too in your defense.
And he graded out as the 12th best corner in the league, not just nickel. He was the 12th best corner. He's a good player. He was a really good pickup when we got him, and I was really excited to see him come out and play for us. I know he had an injury history, and again, another Florida connection with injuries, but that's typically in the past, it's how it's just been going for these Florida guys. They come out, they get injured. But he's been really solid. I think it's very, very important to bring both these guys back. And I think Marcus May is the top priority for the New York Jets heading into this free agency. I mean, in terms of retaining guys, he has to be.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
but
I think that we would say we would feel good if we got both of these guys, but you want to keep your good players on your team,
Yeah, these two guys, they have to be at the top of the list for sure. And I'm sure they are for Joe Douglas too. Like, hey, these two are our priorities. We're going to start from within, and then we'll look at the other outside free agents.
And that's like the goal when you draft guys. You draft Marcus May and you hope you get to this point where you're franchise tagging him and you're working out long-term deals because he's done his job and he's leading the defense in the right way. So you got to love the position we're in with Marcus May and Brian Poole right now.
Definitely.
And we have a couple maybe other guys that we want to sprinkle in here. What do you think?
Yeah, two other guys I think now flipping over to the offensive side are Rashad Perryman and Josh Adams. Now, Perryman, I think he probably left a uncertain taste in all Jets fans' mouth last season, but he really is not bad. Another depth wide receiver. He's cheap, and it's like, why not bring him back? He could be another cheap depth guy. You know what? Might as well bring him back if we can. And same with Josh Adams. Like Josh Adams, we saw him run the ball, and he looks pretty good when he got enough touches. He looked like he can really hold his own. And I'm sure in this offense, where you value that running back position, you have many running backs. Why not have another?
Yeah, I would say those are, especially with the way the wide receiver room is going to be handled. We'll see which route JD takes, but potentially re-signing Perriman could be in the cards. I personally don't see it happening, but again, the route that JD takes with the wide receivers, and if certain pieces land in certain places, then we could see a Perryman return. Cheap, good depth, and just like you said, and Josh Adams could look good paired with Ty Johnson towards the end of last season. I could see him back too. So it all depends where the pieces fall, though, really.
Definitely.
But again, top two priorities: Marcus May, Brian Poole. After that, I'm really going crazy, for any of the other
Yeah,
guys.
after that, I think it's really just guys on the back end too. It's like, it's good to bring them back if you can, but not really top priority. It's just like, all right, we'll start signing guys outside of the Jets organization before looking at those guys.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I agree. All right, what do you say we head to the mailbag?
I think it's time.
All right. All right, so let's start it off. We had two questions this week, and I did not think 2 episodes in that we'd even have one. So I'm happy that we have some interaction.
Yeah.
We'll do the first question coming from a dear friend at Darnold Dimes, my friend Spencer. He asks, your top three free agent targets. So me and JT are going to compile a list of both of our top three. We're gonna combine it, right, JT?
Yeah, I
Come
think
up
we
with
could combine it.
okay. So who's our first guy here? What are we looking at? Who do we think is number one?
Well, number one, I think, has to be Joe Tooney, the guy who got away last year, but not gonna let him escape this time. Patriots can't stop us here.
Yeah, we're throwing the blank check at him. We're getting Joe Thuney. Hopefully, I don't want to jinx anything, but that is definitely number one on my list and number one on yours. Number two.
Number two, sticking with the O line, I really have fallen in love with this guy over the past couple of weeks, but Corey Linsley, just beef up that O line as much as you can, protect that quarterback, help that run game, move McGovern over to guard. He played guard in Denver. He can do it. He can handle the position, but getting Corey Linsley would really help that interior.
And can you just imagine what line would look like? I mean, you have Makai Thuney, Lindsley, McGovern at right guard, and then you have Fant at right tackle. I mean, if you're going to spend the money, spend it up front in the trenches. And I agree with you. That's where you could say, all right, let's sign cheaper guys at wide receiver, get more depth because we know what we need with this system. Hey, man, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch if I'm spending my money.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you get those two guys in this free agency, you could pretty much call it a great A+ free agency right off the bat.
And then we're trying to get one last guy here. Who we looking at?
I think this last guy is Curtis Samuel. Now, like you said, he's great value, and this guy, like you said, also Swiss Army knife. He could line up slot in the backfield, wide out, pretty much anywhere on the offensive side of the ball. And I think he really can just flourish in this LaFleur system here and just be a guy who try and run the offense through him.
Yeah, and I at first I was all in on Allen Robinson, and then once I realized, okay, this guy's going to cost way too much money. Let's look at the value, guys. Curtis Samuel, the age, the fit in the offense, just what he can do everywhere. It just makes too much sense to me. I fell in love with signing Curtis Samuel. I would love him on my football team. Get him to me now.
Definitely.
So those are, to answer your question, Spencer, those are our top three, spinning off of our top five from before. And then into our final question from at JetCS or Jet Central Station asks, so lately I have been hearing people say we should trade for Orlando Brown Jr. and that we can move Makai somewhere else on the line. Could you tell me your thoughts on this? Sure, I can tell you my thoughts on this. I personally don't think this is in the cards. I want JT to start off with his point on this subject because I thought you had a really good point looking at this question.
Yeah, I just think when you're looking at the situation with Orlando Brown and what's happened there with the Ravens, the whole reason why Brown wants to be traded is to play that left tackle position. When you are a left tackle, you get paid premium money, you get the recognition, and it's the most glorified position on the line. And it's just, so if we move him, we trade for him and then move Makai to right tackle because Makai can't play interior. He's too big. One day Makai is going to pull Orlando Brown and he's going to say, I don't want to play right tackle. I want to play left tackle where I can get paid.
And with the route that we took with our free agency here, we are throwing a lot of money at offensive line, which obviously you wouldn't do that if you were going to trade for a guy like Orlando Brown Jr. But you trade for a guy like Orlando Brown Jr., you got to give up assets. And then the guy's going to come here and say, where's my money? He's going to want an extension right off the bat. I don't really know if I feel like giving up assets. Plus, again, like you said, Mekhi Becton at left tackle. I mean, he's a mountain. I want to keep him there. I want to keep him happy. And at the end of this all, the reason you draft a guy like Mekhi Becton at left tackle is to develop and hopefully give him Orlando Brown money. You know, you want him to get that starting left tackle money. So,
yeah, Orlando Brown, he's going to be a great player, but I don't see him playing for us in the future.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up. And I like to hear these little scenarios that people poke out on Twitter. It's really quite interesting. And it's something that I didn't really think about until I saw this question. I saw some talk about it earlier in the week, but I didn't really think much of it until someone actually asked. So Thanks for the question. I think it was Jet Central Station. Jet Central Station, correct. So thank you, boys, for those questions. Any other final thoughts? What are you thinking?
Uh, Final thoughts that I have is, man, I cannot wait for free agency to start on March 17th, and then the Jets draft to be starting in April. But man, pro days are coming up next month. We're gonna see a lot of pro days. We're gonna have a lot of film on prospects, and I can't wait for us to dive into that.
So, like you said, March 17th is when the free agency period opens up. A lot of talk, a lot of changes can happen within the next few weeks, but we are gonna you almost don't realize February is kind of a dead month, flies by. Before you know it, we're into the free agency, which is such a fun time. I mean, your screen time on Twitter is probably like 10 hours a day. I mean, I know mine is because I'm constantly on Twitter the day the free agency market opens up. So
And make sure you have
I'm
your
definitely
Spencer
looking forward to it.
Teeth on.
What was that?
Oh, make sure you have your Schefter no Teeths on for free agency.
Oh
Those are
yeah,
a must.
you need to because if you don't, you need the news right there constantly. I'm looking forward to it, man. So I think that pretty much does it for today. Thanks for listening, and you could follow us on Twitter at Holland Hundos, at Stacking Dollars is JT's at. This will conclude episode 2 of the Jets Lab podcast, and look forward to seeing you guys next time. Go Jets.